Welcome back, those of you still with us. In today's video, we'll first go over the weekly statistics, then break down the top 10 worst shootings of the week, ordered by number of fatalities. The cases range from a homecoming shooting at Heidelberg High School where a pregnant woman was among the dead, to the Leland mass shooting where a dispute spiraled into the deadliest shooting in the country so far this year. If you appreciate these videos, please leave a like and subscribe for weekly updates on gun violence in America. Let's get into it. From October 6th to October 12th, there were at least 569 shootings across the United States. In those incidents, 270 people were killed, including 226 victims and 44 suspects. Another 488 people were injured. 26 incidents had 2 or more people killed. Texas once again sits at the top with 23 people killed and 56 shootings, giving it both the highest body count and the most incidents this week. Pennsylvania and Illinois follow with 18 killed each, and Georgia and California right behind them at 17. Mississippi stands out in a different way. With 15 killed and only 16 incidents, it had the highest fatality-to-incident ratios in the country, driven in large part by the Leland mass shooting. Turning it to the cities, Philadelphia had the most deaths this week, with 9 killed and 16 shootings, followed by Chicago with 7 killed and 24 incidents, and Atlanta with 6 killed and 15. Mixed in with those big city names is Leland, Mississippi, which recorded 7 people killed in a single incident. For a town of around 4,000, that one shooting was enough to put it alongside major metros on the list. Now for some good news. This week, the No Shooting Award goes to Hawaii, Montana, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Vermont, and West Virginia. Honorable mentions go to Iowa, Maine, Nebraska, and Wyoming, all of which had shootings, but no fatalities. That does it for this week's numbers. Now let's break down the 10 worst shootings of the week, starting at number 10. Number 10. Jefferson City, Missouri. Just after 5 a.m. on Tuesday, October 7th, officers already working a traffic crash on Highway 5063 heard a burst of gunfire coming from the nearby 1100 block of Cordell Street. Dispatchers quickly received 911 calls reporting a vehicle that had veered off the road into a wooded area. Responding officers found 2 women inside the car, both critically wounded by gunfire. Shell casings were soon discovered in front of a nearby home on Harding Street, linking the shooting to that location. The victims were transported to the University Hospital in Columbia, where both later died from their injuries. Police detained 40-year-old Michael A. Davis at the Harding Street residence. According to court documents, Davis told investigators that he and one of the women, identified as 39-year-old Shauna Davis, had been at the home when a second woman, 31-year-old Sophie Mulcahy, arrived. He claimed he disliked Mulcahy and ordered her to leave. During the argument, he retrieved a rifle equipped with a drum-style magazine and placed it by the door. When Shauna walked toward the vehicle with Mulcahy, Davis said she believed she was being forced inside and opened fire, striking the car more than 30 times with a .223 and .556 caliber rounds. Prosecutors later upgraded his charges from assault to 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with armed criminal action and unlawful use of a weapon. A conviction could carry the death penalty or life without parole. Vigils were held in Fulton for Mulcahy, remembered by her friends as selfless and brave for trying to help her friend escape domestic violence. Her aunt and lifelong friend called the act cowardly and urged other women to leave abusive relationships before it's too late. The tragedy rattled both Jefferson City and Fulton, where dozens gathered with candles spelling her name. Prosecutor Locke Thompson said the scale of gunfire, over 30 rounds fired, demonstrated premeditation. Community members expressed heartbreak that a friend's attempt to help another turned fatal, and police reaffirmed their call for anyone in crisis to contact the Suicide in Crisis Lifeline or local domestic violence resources. Number 9. Waterbury, Connecticut. Just before 11 p.m. on Monday, October 6th, officers responded to 176 Beverly Avenue after reports of gunfire inside a home. When they entered, they found 2 adults dead from gunshot wounds. Police later identified the victims as 51-year-old Carlene Williams and 55-year-old Mark Adams. Investigators quickly began searching for the victim's son, 25-year-old Javian Adams, who fled the scene. Within hours, Watertown police arrested him several miles away, responding to a burglary call near Lake Winnemog. Adams was found wearing stolen rain boots, and investigators linked him to a stolen white Ford Escape abandoned in a nearby park. The Watertown and Middlebury police departments assisted in recovering evidence and conducting a dive search in the surrounding area. According to state prosecutors, Adam executed his parents inside their home, shooting his mother twice and his father once in the back of the head before fleeing. Authorities said the family had argued over finances earlier that day, and video evidence showed Adams being accused of taking money from the household. He faces multiple charges, including murder with special circumstances, murder during the commission of a felony, criminal use of a weapon, and larceny of a motor vehicle. His bond was set at $5 million. Police said Adams has a long and violent history of domestic abuse, including prior arrests for assault, strangulation, and endangering a minor. In one case, he was ordered to attend domestic violence counseling, but was discharged for failing to show up. Court records show several pending cases and probation violations involving his family members. Neighbors along Beverly Avenue described the neighborhood as quiet and family-oriented, saying they were stunned by the violence. Local police and advocacy group Safe Haven of Greater Waterbury called the killings an extreme act of domestic violence and announced new community outreach initiatives to help identify early warning signs. Chief Fernando Spagnolo urged residents to check in with friends and relatives who may be in abusive relationships, emphasizing that tragedy often strikes without warning. The investigation remains active, but officials believe there is no ongoing threat to the public. Number 8. Anderson, South Carolina. Just after 3:15 a.m. on Sunday, October 12th, officers were dispatched to the Truth Bar and Grill on West Franklin Street after multiple 911 calls reported gunfire. When they arrived, they found 2 men dead outside and 3 others injured. Paramedics treated several victims on the scene while others were rushed to the AmMed Health for emergency care. The Anderson County's coroner's office identified the deceased as 54-year-old Calvin Chester Jr. and 30-year-old Roy Mad McDaniel. Both men worked as security guards for the bar and were trying to break up a fight when shots erupted. Chester was struck in the head, McDaniels in the chest, and both died where they fell. Their deaths were ruled homicides following autopsies scheduled later that week. Detectives determined that a brawl inside the bar escalated into exchange of gunfire involving multiple shooters. After collecting surveillance footage and witness statements, police charged 4 suspects: 18-year-old Kevon Duval Turner, 18-year-old Jamarcus Harold Brown, 24-year-old Jemias Quende Howard, and 8-year-old Nashawn Year Putman, with 2 counts of murder, 3 counts of assault and battery of a high aggravated nature, and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. Brown, Turner, and Howard were arrested within 3 days of the shooting, and Putman turned himself soon after. All 4 were denied bond. Investigators said at least 5 people were hit in total and confirmed that multiple firearms were used, though ballistics testing is still underway to determine whose rounds caused the fatalities. Family and community members have described the shooting as devastating. Chester's wife said she had arrived to pick up her husband when gunfire erupted, watching helplessly as he was killed. Chester was a father of 10, remembered by his friends as a man who looked after everyone around him. Residents say the violence has shaken confidence in nightlife safety downtown, while authorities continue working to ensure suspects are held fully accountable. Number 7. Heidelberg, Mississippi. On Friday night, October 10th, homecoming celebrations at Heidelberg High School ended in chaos when gunfire erupted on campus after the football game against Mize. Officers and medics rushed to the school grounds and found 2 people fatally shot, one victim on the baseball field and another in the tailgating area near the bleachers. At least 1 additional person was wounded at the scene, and a 3rd victim, 25-year-old K.S. Stevens, died days later from his injuries not caused by gunfire after being taken to a hospital by private vehicle. The first 2 victims were identified as 35-year-old Chris Newell and 28-year-old Micaiah McCrae, both of Laurel. Authorities said McCrae was pregnant. Within hours, investigators named 18-year-old Tyler Jarrod Goodlow as a person of interest and later arrested him on 2 counts of capital murder and possession of a deadly weapon on educational property. His cash bond was set at $2,010,000, and he was subsequently transferred to federal custody on a school property weapon offense. Over the following days, additional arrests followed. 19-year-old Damarin Starks, 19-year-old Jadarius Cortez Page, 19-year-old Jabari Deshaun Collins, 19-year-old Jalen Gamage, and 19-year-old Taylor Markey Hartfield with a bond matching Goodlow's. Investigators also detained a minor on a tampering charge. The shooting stunned a packed crowd of families, students, and alumni who had come for a night of school pride. The mayor called the violence an aberration and pledged full cooperation with law enforcement. while the district said the tragedy marred what should have been a joyful evening and affirmed campus safety as a top priority. Community leaders and residents have shared tributes for Newell, McRae, and Stevens, and police are urging anyone with video or information from the game to contact investigators. Chief Cornell White said more arrests were possible and emphasized that the town would not be defined by the attack.
Bitch, you wanna fight, bitch? You wanna fight? You wanna fight? What's up? What's up, nigga? You wanna fight or what? What's up? You wanna fight or what? What's up?
Number 6. Durango, Colorado. Around 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 7th, officers responded to multiple 911 calls about shots fired in the 2400 block of North Arroyo Drive at the Apache Mobile Home Park. Within 3 minutes, police entered Unit 2 and found 3 people with gunshot wounds. 2 women, 32-year-old Shelby Campbell and 32-year-old Emma Sims, were transported to Mercy Hospital and later died. The suspected shooter, 32-year-old Bradley Campbell, was found with a self-inflicted wound and initially remained in critical condition. Police said there is no ongoing threat to the public. Detectives say the shooting was domestic in nature. Preliminary findings indicate Bradley Campbell confronted his estranged wife, Shelby, and her friend Emma inside the residence, produced a handgun, and shot both women before shooting himself. No evidence suggests anyone else was involved. Bradley Campbell later died of his injuries on October 13th. The Durango Police Department, La Plata County Sheriff's Office, and Colorado Bureau of Investigation processed the scene and recovered evidence as a part of the homicide inquiry. The killing shook a community already reeling from another domestic violence shooting days earlier. Friends and co-workers described Shelby as a joyful, generous presence at Beads and Beyond. A local performer said both women were pillars of the Durango's comedy scene. Chief Bryce Curran called the back-to-back domestic incidents a heartbreaking reminder of the need for early intervention.
You're fucking kill you! You fucking
Number 5. Bertrand, Missouri. Around 2:30 p.m. on Monday, October 6, deputies in Mississippi County responded to 8101 County Road 408 for a missing person report after 62-year-old farmer Gerard Essner stopped answering calls while harvesting soybeans. When investigators arrived, they found Essner dead near his equipment and determined that he had been shot. Deputies soon realized the gunfire had come from a nearby home belonging to 36-year-old Nathan Peters, who then barricaded himself inside. Law enforcement from multiple agencies established a perimeter and attempted to contact Peters. At approximately 7:36 p.m., Sikeston tactical team members were positioned outside when Peters opened fire, fatally striking DPS officer Henry Franklin. Gunfire continued from inside the residence until the Missouri State Highway Patrol's Troop C SWAT unit arrived to relieve local officers. Negotiations carried on for several hours as authorities attempted to persuade Peters to surrender. Around 12:35 a.m., officers entered the home and discovered him dead from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators later recovered spent rifle rounds and bullet holes in nearby farm equipment, consistent with the earlier shooting. Sheriff Britton Farrell called the tragedy one of the darkest his county has ever seen. Mississippi County Prosecutor Claire Poley commended the officers for their bravery under fire, calling their actions a reflection of the values that make this nation strong. Community members described Essner as a hardworking farmer known across Benton and Orrin, and tributes poured in for Officer Franklin, who served with Sikeston DPS tactical team. Authorities said the motive remains under investigation, but emphasized the event as a sobering reminder of mental health and crisis intervention needs in rural communities. Number 4. Springfield, Illinois. Around 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 9th, Sangamon County deputies were called to a home in the 3000 block of Hoover Avenue, an unincorporated area known as Cabbage Patch, for reports of a shooting inside the residence. Deputies entered and found 3 people dead at the scene from gunshot wounds. The coroner identified the victims as 22-year-old Mynesha Day, 21-year-old Davion Brady, and 9-year-old Cash Russell, all of Springfield. Illinois State Police crime scene investigators assisted while detectives secured a second search warrant at a nearby apartment complex. A red SUV believed to have been in the area at the time was located near Governor Street and MacArthur Boulevard, occupied by two women who were released while the vehicle was towed for processing. The sheriff said the attack appeared targeted rather than random. Detectives have continued interviews to clarify relationships and events that led up to the shooting. Investigators said Brady did not live at the Hoover Avenue address and had no known affiliation with the occupants, and they are working to determine why he was present. No arrests or suspect descriptions have been announced publicly. Authorities have not released a weapon type. Autopsies were completed on October 10th and confirmed that all three victims died from gunshot wounds. The case remains active as deputies review evidence obtained under the search warrants and analyze leads tied to the red SUV. Family and school leaders described a profound loss. Relatives said Cash, a fourth grader at Graham Elementary, was a bright, joyful student who loved music and reading, and classmates will receive support when school resumes. Daisy's mother said her daughter was loving and protective, and relatives shared that Cash's twin brother witnessed the violence and tried to help. Community members have urged an end to the retaliatory shootings and asked neighbors to share video or tips with investigators. Number 3. Sugar Land, Texas. Around 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday, October 8th, Sugar Land police responded to a shooting in the 129,000 block of Derry Ashford Road near Highway 90. They found a woman inside a white SUV that had veered off the road, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Officers and bystanders performed CPR until EMS arrived, but she was later pronounced dead at Ben Taub Hospital. About an hour later, Houston police were called to two separate scenes on Fondren Road, one at an auto repair shop, the other in a nearby parking lot, where two men were found shot to death. Not long after, officers located the suspected shooter inside a vehicle on Creek Bend Drive, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators identified the gunman as 42-year-old William Lewis and the first victim as 47-year-old Shelley Perrault of Rosenberg. Police say Lewis and Perrault had been in an off-and-on relationship and that the shooting was not a random road rage incident as initially thought. After killing her, Lewis allegedly drove to Houston, argued with the mechanic at the Fondren body shop, and shot him. As the owner of the shop, 35-year-old Hector Vasquez began recording on his phone. Lewis turned the gun on him too, killing him instantly before taking his own life minutes later. Detectives recovered multiple shell casings and confirmed the same weapon was used at all three scenes. Family and neighbors described Perrault as a kind and deeply spiritual woman who had rebuilt her life after losing her son in 2018. Friends gathered at Buffalo Run Park over the weekend for a balloon release to honor her memory. Flowers and candles also lined the door of Fondren Road Shop, where workers say they still replay the sound of gunfire in their minds. Police called it a devastating case of domestic violence that spread across two cities. Number 2. Saint Helena Island, South Carolina. Just after 1 a.m. on Sunday, October 12th, deputies were called to Willie's Bar and Grill on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive for reports of a mass shooting. The venue was packed with hundreds of Battery Creek High School alumni celebrating a tailgate event when bursts of gunfire tore through the crowd outside. When officers arrived, they found a chaotic scene of overturned tables, trampled patrons, and multiple people lying in the parking lot. 4 victims were pronounced dead where they fell, and at least 20 others were wounded, several critically. Witnesses described people running into nearby shops and homes to take cover as deputies and paramedics worked through the crowd. The deceased were identified as 22-year-old Kashawn Glaze and 33-year-old Sherrod Smalls, both of Beaufort, 22-year-old Ashantek Milledge of Burton, and 54-year-old Amos Gary of St. Helena. Investigators said Gary was working security when he was fatally hit. Sheriff P.J. Tanner confirmed that all 20 victims had been struck by gunfire and that the weapon used was likely a handgun illegally converted to fire automatically. Former ATF agent Brian Lett told reporters the pattern of injuries suggested a rapid-fire switch device capable of emptying a magazine in seconds. Deputies recovered dozens of shell casings from the parking lot and are investigating several persons of interest with federal assistance, but no arrests have been announced. Witnesses said the barrage sounded like a machine gun. Cook, Henry Wright, recalled seeing people performing CPR on friends and strangers as others tried to shield the wounded. Bar owner Willie Terrell called the attack terrorism, insisting the shooter or shooters were not patrons of the reunion, but outsiders who opened fire on a crowd like a war zone. Neighbors in the Gullah Geechee community spent the next morning setting candles and flowers at a memorial table outside the bar, just across from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park. The incident was the second shooting at the location in recent years. Number 1. Leland, Mississippi. Just before midnight on Saturday, October 11th, gunfire erupted at the intersection of 4th Street and North Main Street in downtown Leland as crowds lingered after the high school homecoming game. Responding officers found a large scene stretching past local businesses with multiple victims in the roadway and sidewalks. 6 people were confirmed dead within hours, and more than a dozen were injured, several of them airlifted to regional hospitals. By October 17th, a 7th victim, 25-year-old Ebony Williams of Greenville, died at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. The Washington County Coroner's Office reported at least 16 gunshot victims in total as detectives documented casings and canvassed the blocks around the gathering. Investigators said the violence began as a disagreement among several individuals before shots were fired into the crowd. Arrests followed over the next several days. Capital murder charges were filed against 33-year-old Taro Gurnell Martin, 29-year-old Tavion Powell, 29-year-old William Bryant, and 25-year-old Morgan Lattimore. 44-year-old Latoya Powell was charged with attempted murder. Authorities later said 9 people were in custody in connection with the case, and additional arrests remained possible as the inquiry widened. A witness told reporters that Latoya Powell and Tavion Powell are aunt and nephew, and that one of the victims, 25-year-old Shelbiona Powell, was Latoya's niece. The 7 people killed were identified as 41-year-old Orishama Johnson, 19-year-old Calvin Plant, 25-year-old Shelbiana Powell, 18-year-old Cashlyn Johnson, 18-year-old Amos Brantley Jr., 34-year-old Jamichael Jones, and 25-year-old Ebony Williams. Residents described shock at the scale of the scene in a city of roughly 4,000, noting that 4 victims were pronounced dead at the intersection and the others died after transport. Leland's mayor called the attack a tragedy that struck a community celebration and urged unity as investigators work through the case details. Officials have not announced a definitive motive beyond the dispute, and the joint investigation by local police, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, and FBI remains active. Alright, that concludes the 10 worst shootings this week. These were a small slice of the at least 270 people who now know what happens after death, and hundreds more will the week after. If you appreciate these videos, please leave a like and subscribe for weekly updates on gun violence in America. I'm also posting shorts throughout the week and articles on Instagram, so feel free to follow along there too. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe.